Hear Me podcast, brought to you by me, Dr. Emonie Rivera. This podcast is centered around Blackness, Black beauty, and our stories as Black women. I am intentional in the space that I curate, not just for me, but because I recognize that there is a need to have spaces to talk about hair, to talk about ourselves, to be unapologetic in who we are. So, welcome. I hope you'll stay for a while. Hi, everyone, and welcome to podcast episode 1 of Hear Me Out by me. So, the first episode will probably be brief, but I wanted to introduce myself. I wanted to put myself out there, and this is the first episode. So, let me do introductions. Hello, my name is Imani Rivera. I recently graduated with my PhD in counseling and counselor education, and I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of it because I did it my way. I did it in a way that was authentic and in alignment with who I am and also the person that I want to be in academia as a researcher, as a counselor, as a supervisor, and all the things, right? I recognize that I cannot be myself if I cannot enter spaces and rooms in which I can't fully be myself, in which I have to hide or I have to shift or I have to code switch. And that's not me. And so, because of that, I was unapologetic in who I was throughout my entire doctoral program. You can ask anyone. Yeah. But continuing on from that, my dissertation was about my community, about my own lived experiences. I had 9 Black women come together and talk about their hair experiences, talk about the hair messages that they received from their mothers and how those hair messages continues to be present and continues to be reinforced through various messages, not just from family members, but also from society. To do this, I utilize photo voice methodology, which is a participatory action research form of research methodology, but I place my co-researchers or participants as formally or usually named in research, but they were the experts of their experiences. They were the experts of their community. And so they told their hair stories. They told it in ways in which we were able to laugh and in moments that we got serious, and we named that it is exhausting to be Black in the United States context. It's exhausting to be Black in the workplace, and yet we still have to do it, right? We still have to show up. We still have to figure out ourselves. We have to use our voice in ways that are empowering, but also in times we have to use our voices in ways that we are sheltered and that we protect ourselves because the world is harsh. And for so long, we are passed down messages from our mothers, our grandmothers, our aunts, our cousins, from teachers and church ladies, and the list continues about survival and what it takes to survive. And what my study concluded is that, yeah, hair is not just a part of identity, but hair is a huge part of Blackness, of Black is beautiful, of the Black Power movement, and the list continues. And although we have maybe stepped away from that movement, we recognize that hair, natural hair in its profession, in its state, is professional and it should be welcome. But we know that the sad reality is that that's not everyone's experience. Some women, men alike, are fired or kicked out of school or prohibited from engaging in programs and sporting events and celebratory occasions because of their hair practices by institutions that were never meant for us, if we're being honest. And so that's what my study got at. And it was amazing. It was powerful. It was welcoming. And then it was posted by my university or by my program. And the name of my study alone was seen by so many people. And the amount of support that I received was overwhelming in a way that it put it into light in a different way, that this is needed, that I need to continue the conversation, that we need to continue the conversation, and to just have one study and call a day is not enough. And I knew it wasn't going to be enough, and that was never my intentions, but it showed me that we need to continue to have these conversations. We need to continue to foster environments and spaces where we can just be ourselves without worrying about code switching and and shifting and all the other things that we often have to do for survival. And so I come to this podcast. I recognize that, yes, one line of work to continue this conversation, and specifically the counseling field, is to have the publications, is to do empirical work and all the things, which is needed for academia as well. Yes, I'm not arguing that. However, my work is for people that look like me. My work is for little Imani that didn't get the opportunity to fully express herself because of hair practices and hair messages, which were rooted in Eurocentric beauty standards that weren't meant for me. I know that I'm beautiful, but oftentimes society names Black aspects, Blackness, Black people as unwelcoming, unsafe, as ugly. And that's not true. And so I'm hoping that with this podcast, I can start to invite individuals to tell their stories. Tell your hair story. Show me the photos. Show me the graduation photos, the school photos, the church photos, and all the things that hold memories and hold symbolic meaning in your life. I'm going to be inviting people to come and join me, and hopefully you'll be one. I would love for you to join me, and I will tell my own story as well as to why this sparked an interest for me. But yeah, that's the plan, that's the intentions, that's the meaning behind my story, and so many other experiences that I could go into detail about, but I'll name it there, or I'll leave it there, right? So maybe some of you are wondering, why hair? Like, what does that have to do with things? And let me give you some context. So, to give some background as to why I landed on here and how this became a whole dissertation that was used for me to graduate my PhD, there's a lot of literature out there, specifically in books, that talks about hair for Black women, for Black people, and for Black culture. And so in early African society, hair was used as a means of communication. It was used to tell if someone was married, if someone was grieving, social economic class, and the list continues. When African individuals were forced to come to the United States, and forced into chattel slavery, and the captors, the colonizers, shaved their hair. As a means of stripping away their identity, as a means of trying to reclaim power, and trying to take away power from enslaved individuals. It was very intentional. It was violent. It was cruel, to say the least. But then we continue to see the way in which hair continues to be a form of oppression in the United States context. It didn't go away. We have the Tegan Law, which made free Black individuals cover up their hair with hair wraps, because the idea was that Black women were taking attention away from white women. And then we have the comb test, in which individuals had to comb their hair before they could enter an establishment. And the idea is that a comb has to be able to go through your hair in order for you to be permitted into a place of business, right? And then we see it in the way in which colorism, which is the bias based on someone's skin complexion, and we know that individuals of darker skin complexion receive or are likely to experience more bias, more racism because of their darker skin complexion. And then we have texturism, which is the curl pattern, in which is your hair, if your hair has tight curls, then you're more likely to experience texturism in that way. And the idea is that you don't fit the Eurocentric beauty standard. You are too far away from straight hair. And because of that, you are different. You are not welcomed, essentially. And then we also have featureism, which is the idea that features that are closely resembled to Eurocentric features are beautiful, while Afrocentric features, facial features, are ugly, such as full lips, nose, high cheekbones, things like that. That is considered ugly. And so these things come together to create this interlocking system of oppression. That's where we bring in Black feminist thought. That's where we bring in intersectionality and all the other powerful tools of resistance for Black women, but for Black people in general, right? And so that is what it got at. I got at the history. I was able to name the various lived experiences that have perpetrated and continued to invade the United States history, and a means of hair continues to be weaponized. That's why we have the Crown Act. That's why we need the Crown Act. And we're still working on getting it passed in every state. And the Crown Act is a form of protection against natural hair, for natural hair, against hair discrimination. It protects in the workplace and also in educational settings, but we recognize that it's not passed in every state. I live in the state of North Carolina, and it's not passed in North Carolina. However, it is passed in certain cities. So essentially, how the law works is it's up to the state as to whether or not it's passed. And so we're still working on creating advocacy, creating awareness, and making sure that lawmakers, policymakers are aware that this needs to be passed, that we need hair protection, because too often and too frequently, Black people people of color are losing their jobs, losing opportunities, losing their educational standing as well because of their hair practices, because they don't fit into the grooming policies which were created by institutions for people of Eurocentric background. And so that is just gives context to everything. That gives context as to why I'm passionate about this. This gives context as to why I became a whole dissertation, and why I hope that this becomes an interest to you and a way of joining in this fight for change, having conversations with your peers, your family members, your colleagues, and all the things about how hair is impacting various people. And so again, this is just episode one, and where I just introduced myself and I continue the conversation. But I'm looking forward to hearing from you all. Thank you.